Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Scrutiny Committee. Can I have, please, apologies for absence?
We have apologies from Sarah Naylor, the Senior Project Manager at Northamptonshire County Council.
Right, thank you. Any declarations of interest, anyone? No? Can't see any hands waving. Can we move then to the appointment of Vice Chairman? Do I have any nominations, please?
It's Councillor Pritchard here. Actually, I'd like to nominate Councillor Wiltshire as the next Vice Chair of the Scrutiny Committee.
Do I have a seconder?
You do. I'd like to second Councillor Wiltshire for that role.
Councillor Wiltshire, are you willing to accept?
I am willing to accept the role.
Right. Are we all in favour then, please?
Yes.
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 We'll have a general wave. Lovely. Thank you very much. Right. Can we turn to the minutes then, please? Pages 5 to 12. Has anybody any alterations at all? We'll take it page by page. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8 and page 9. Is it your wish that I sign them in due course?
Yes.
Thank you.
It is, yeah.
Yes, we did write and thank our friends from Western Power to come and talk to us, and I think they're the first visitors we've had who actually were thrilled to come and offered to come back. So I think that can only be good news. I haven't got any urgent business, you'll be pleased to know. Chairman's announcements, just two things to say, I think. I have sent some details to Leslie about National Grid, and I don't know whether she's had any success. You recall at the last meeting, we did think it was a good idea for them to come and talk to us about the trouble of connections into the National Grid. Leslie, have you managed to progress that?
No, Chairman. I went onto their website and I rang, and they're a multifaceted organisation, and I've been through to several departments and I haven't managed to find the right one yet.
Corporate affairs, any good?
You just get passed from pillar to post, but can we talk about this in the work programme bit, yes, Chairman? Okay, is that okay?
Fine, thank you. Right, shall we move on then to our guests? And we've got Ian at Church who's waiting in the wings, so to speak, and he's going to tell us about superfast broadband for Northamptonshire, which you recall we have been looking at on and off. So Ian, I can't see on my screen yet, but no doubt you're going to pop up.
You hear me?
Oh.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Mr. Church.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, apologies, you can't see me. I'm in work, so I'm at a desktop rather than a laptop. So yeah, but I'm here. So thank you for inviting me. Apologies for Sarah. Childcare issues have arisen, which means she can't be on this, but she had a major hand in putting together the presentation for you. Just to inform, how long would you like me to talk for, Chair?
Not being ever rude, not all day. But have you got something that will last about 10 minutes or so?
That sounds about right. Yep, I can do that. No problems. In terms of are you going to?
Yeah, Ian, I'll share your presentation. If you could just let me know when you wanted me to change the screen, so hopefully members can now see the presentation.
Lovely. If you move on to the next slide, please. So this background, I know some of you, or some of you may know me. I've been involved in the project for the best part of 10 years since the start, and it's consumed a lot of time, and I think we've achieved a lot over those 10 years. Some of which we're going to cover here. So a little bit of background about the project, the national policy context, some targets we've got locally and how we're progressing towards those. What you'll be interested in is coverage in Southamptonshire, which we'll look at. Also, how you can zoom and find out more locally what the coverage is like and what the plans are like. Then moving on to the end, so looking ahead and how you can be kept informed. So that's the approach that I was going to cover briefly. Do you want to move on to the next slide, please? So Superfast Northamptonshire is primarily an infrastructure project. It is about securing infrastructure to enable premises to access faster digital connectivity in areas of market failure. So that's really important. We can only invest public funding in areas of market failure. We have to go through a very kind of rigorous process in working with government and state aid teams to be able to clear any plans. We need to engage with the market to ensure that we're not overbuilding their plans, and we wouldn't want to. So it is a highly regulated market. The first contract was awarded in 2013 to BT as was, and I remember the launch in Towcester back in the first cabinet, I think it was near Richmond Road in Towcester, delivered through contract 1. Stage 2 was won by Openreach, so BT had then split into its Openreach, its infrastructure arm, and its retail provider, which is BT Retail. So the first 2 contracts were urban and rural. So the common area was market failure, had to be areas of market failure, but there was both urban and rural coverage, hence Towcester and Brackley benefited alongside some of the larger villages. It was about delivering the most for the funding available. So rather than focus on the worst speeds, it was around how much the most we can deliver for the public funding we had available. And obviously speed was a critical point as well. The first 2 contracts were awarded through a framework, a government framework, which Openreach were the main player on, BT Openreach the main player on. Stage 3 contracts, we went out to an open process and GigClear won that. And they started in January 2017, two lots, 2 contracts, so they won those both. And the project is part of the government's National Digital Programme, which was a Superfast programme. It's now moved on. Thank you. So the National Broadband Strategy launched a long time ago. So let's focus on more current things. I think the watershed probably was the Future Telecoms Review in 2018. So that the Infrastructure Commission looked at digital coverage and where the UK needs to be competitive moving forward in a global economy. And their recommendation was full fibre is where we need to be as a nation. And full fibre means theoretically that you have unlimited speeds. The speeds can just scale up in terms of demand and the kind of the technology that connects to it, but there is no kind of theoretically no limit in terms of the speed, and the boundaries are being pushed on that. You'll hear terms like, for example, gigabit capable, and gigabit capable means the infrastructure is capable of 1 gigabit per second, whereas full fibre is upwards of that. So hence a gigabit coverage target by 2025, which the Prime Minister has kind of focused on. That's a major part of his leadership campaign 12 months or so ago. I think the important thing with gigabit is that it can be delivered through 5G as well as fibre, but the 5G would mainly be urban because of the technologies involved. The government have launched, the Treasury approved a £5 billion outside-in programme that's focused on the 20% hardest to reach premises. So this is a programme which is being mobilised at the moment. I'll come on to that at the end, but this is just giving you a bit of context in terms of a national position. Should we move on to the next slide, please? Along the left-hand side, that's in summary the different technologies. Where we were 10 years ago was ADSL broadband, so it's copper. It was a copper infrastructure. The first contracts were met with Openreach or BT were mainly this middle diagram, which is fibre to the cabinet, where you have fibre optic from the exchange to the cabinet, to the green cabinet, and then you have a copper line. And depending on how long that copper line is depends on how fast your speed is. There's other variables such as how many other properties are connected to that cabinet, the quality of the copper. Those are the main kind of considerations. But where we are aiming to be and where we are increasingly is the bottom diagram, which is it's fibre all the way through. So whether that's being delivered by GigaClear, OpenReach, or another provider, Glide, as was WarwickNet, that's where we want to be in the future. Fibre all the way. We had challenging targets, so other people set targets of 90% coverage. Our target was over 99% coverage, and we're very close to it. We're at 98.5%. By the end of 2023, we were also the first area to set, or one of the first areas to have full fibre and gigabit coverage targets. What we wanted to do was to show to the government, we've got ambitions looking further ahead. We want to be part of your £5 billion programme, and we want to get there quickly. So we set these targets, 40% full fibre by the end of 2023, so about 3 years away. We're 15%, but we're increasing rapidly. And also a target of 75% gigabit capable coverage by the end of 2023. So again, we're at 15%. That's going to rise more quickly as, for example, Virgin Media upgrade their technology, which will have a major impact on areas served by Virgin. I think that's probably enough for that target. That slide, please. This, apologies, is an error on the left-hand one, which I've just picked up this afternoon. So when we first started delivering the project, if you ignore the blodge around Toaster and also the one right in the south of the district, the commercial coverage, so you'd only been able to access superfast broadband if you were in Brackley and parts of Deanshanger in 2012. The picture has kind of moved on significantly, as you see, moving to where we are in 2020, and by the end of the GigaClear plans, the picture will be even more rosy. So you can see, whilst the numbers have only increased from, say, just over 70% superfast to 98.5, the geography has changed significantly. So there's still white patches where there isn't yet superfast, but we're working on those. We're targeting those through different measures, but you can see how the coverage has transformed. So I will correct the map on the left-hand side and make sure that's sent out through Democratic Services. So apologies for that, but it wasn't that good back in 2012. Really, the coverage was focused on the larger towns in the county, plus Brackley, plus parts of Brackley. Deanshanger probably benefited because of its proximity to Milton Keynes, but generally there was no rural coverage or small market town coverage. Moving on, please. To the next slide. So in terms of how does South Northamptonshire compare with England and Wales and the county? In terms of its urban coverage, so which is obviously Brackley, Toaster, and the part on the edge of Northampton. Superfast coverage 99.9% compared to England and Wales 98.7%, and in terms of full fibre 19.48 compared with 16.13. So that's kind of positive, even though smaller towns and less urban, it's still higher than the national average. In terms of rural, which is obviously the vast majority of the district, the figures are still positive. So rural coverage in South Northamptonshire is 95.9% of premises compared to 90% for the UK as a whole. And in terms of full fibre, you're at, which is obviously the optimum technology, as I mentioned earlier, you're at 23.65% of premises compared to an England and Wales average of 16.3. So we're in a good position. In terms of South Northamptonshire, there's a little bit more detail in terms of the rest of West Northamptonshire, which obviously begin to think more about. But we're in a kind of a good position, particularly in terms of the super fast picture, almost full coverage, much more to do in terms of full fibre, but we're common there with the rest of the country. We're in a better position, which is where we want to be, ahead of the game, even though we are primarily a rural county and obviously a very rural district with South Northamptonshire. Moving on to the next slide, please. So briefly, South Hampshire did very well from the first 2 contracts delivered through BT Openreach. So over a quarter of the premises served under both contracts, in fact over 37%, so almost 40% were in the district. That's primarily because it's rural, and there are 2, well, Toaster, which was obviously a very attractive low-hanging fruit to be delivered. So almost 25,000 premises can now access superfast broadband as a result of the project in the district. I consider over a third of GigaClear's coverage delivered through their contracts will be delivered in the district as well, which is brilliant news. And what another advantage of that is, through building their publicly funded or publicly supported plans, they've established a footprint in Northamptonshire. They've got a regional office in Daventry, which serves the central part of England, and they've got commercial plans which are approaching 10,000 premises in the district. So again, that's brilliant. Those 10,000 premises, no public funding involved. I think, yeah, that's really good news. The diagram below show, or the pictures below show that it is quite evasive, full fibre. You do have to dig into the carriageway, into the turf if we're lucky. But reinstatement is a key issue. Golden gravel is particularly challenging, but reinstatement is a really important part of that. You'll be able to see the cabinets. Most of the cabinets which have been delivered through the project will have a sticker on them. Sometimes there isn't, but normally there'll be a cabinet with a sticker on to kind of raise awareness that the area is being connected by full fibre. So that's whether it's through GigaClear or through BT Openreach. The next slide shows through GigaClear's plans, which are in place at the moment. They're delivering. The area is live. You can see on the left-hand side, the communities in plans. So this is the communities in plans will be where they're currently delivering now. Places like Harpole, where they're actually kind of working, and off towards Kisdenbury and Pattershaw, they're building at the moment. And those plans will be completed over the next 18 months or so. So they're doing a tremendous amount connecting all these areas where, without public funding, they will be suffering from poor broadband speeds. So yeah, South Northamptonshire has been a major focus for GigaClear. I probably should say here that it's not without its challenges. It seems easy listing the numbers and those villages, but to give you a flavour of some of the challenges that we've kind of faced, HS2, the works, which obviously is a big issue for the district. It was also a big issue for the project. The contractors dug through one of GigaClear's cables, so that was a problem which had to be sorted. They're having to cross canals. And they've crossed rivers such as the Cherwell. Often that involves directional drill under the river if you can't use the bridge. Often they're historic bridges that you don't want to disrupt. So that's complex. We have to work with Highways England, which is challenging. So crossing the A5, crossing the A43, wherever possible, we'll use existing, or the project will use existing ducts, so which are existing tunnels, beneath roads, beneath the canals, if we're lucky, and if there's space. But often it will require new dig, and that can be expensive. Wayleaves is a really big issue as well. Wherever possible, the digging will be on the highway, whether it's GigaClear or Openreach can use their telecoms powers to dig on the public highway. But if you're going to get to some of these communities, and particularly get to them in the most direct way, you need to secure wayleaf agreements, which can be challenging, with private landowners. So that is an issue that we kind of work through, and quite often there'll be an initial network diagram, and there may be 3 or 4 iterations of it to work around way leave issues where the might not be able to find the, or it's difficult to find or make contact with the landowner or their agent, or they may be looking for a very high amount of payment to enable the connection to take place. And sometimes they just don't want any digging across their land. So there are barriers that wherever possible we'll tackle. It may sometimes mean that you can't get to certain places, but that's the last course of action. Moving on to the next slide, please. So in the last month, we've launched our new look where and when map, and you can access this at, well, if you Google superfastnorthamptonshire.net and look for where and when map, this is at premise level. So previously it's at postcode level. So you put in your postcode and it'll tell you whether you were commercially covered or whether you're part of plans or not yet in plans. Whereas now you can put your premise in and it should come up as in one of those categories you can see there. So I think that's kind of a great improvement. There's a lot more visibility now for people to understand, you know, how they feature. It's not perfect, but any issues with it, yeah, we'll come on to the contact details, but I think it's kind of a great improvement in terms of the granularity it kind of provides to members of the public or businesses to see what their speeds are like and see what they need to do as well, because quite often people get upgraded but they don't know unless their internet provider tells them that they can benefit from a new service. They're often have been connected but stay on the same service. This way they can understand whether they have been connected by GigaClear or OpenReach and what they need to do to get a faster service. Next slide, please. So now we're moving towards the end in terms of what next. As I mentioned earlier, we're still delivering through GigaClear contracts. So that will continue for another 12 to 18 months, depending on which communities we're focusing on. We managed to secure £2 million of DEFRA funding through the Rural Payments Agencies. So it was got European monies to connect more rural businesses, which is brilliant news. So we were able to kind of commit that to contract in the last month. So that's fantastic news for the whole county, including South Northamptonshire. We need to deliver more full fibre. So as I mentioned, was South Northampton's got better coverage than the typical rural England and Wales. There's still 70, if you think about full fibre as the solution, there's still approximately 75% of premises in the district without full fibre currently, and that's the end goal. So it's not all about public funding. It shouldn't be. So what we do is we engage with suppliers to promote Northamptonshire as a great place to invest commercially, and that's how we've managed to get GigaClear to deliver to well, it'll be well over 20,000 premises commercially in the county, and attract others like Glide, who were previously WarwickNet, to invest all their coverage is commercial. So that's what we do. We kind of engage with new entrants as well as the ones who are currently there, and people like Virgin as well, companies like Virgin to try and encourage them to upgrade, promote Northamptonshire as it says a great investment for them, which it is. I mentioned about the £5 billion, what the government call outside in programme. I'm sure there'll be a better name for it, but what that is around gigabit or full fibre connectivity. Gigabit's obviously a lot easier to deliver, and it's about 5G as well. So our focus, our intervention is going to be more around the fibre rather than the 5G. But this is a big issue, big focus for at the moment. So whilst the target is the next 5 years, it'll probably be a programme nearer moving more towards 10 years, I think, to deliver full fibre. We need to position ourselves so that we're at the front of the queue, so that, as we have been with other contracts, we've been amongst the first 3 or 4 to be awarded in the country, because there's a long queue of areas that want to receive this funding, and we're working very closely with government to kind of shape the contracts and also the process and through that we hope that we'll be in a good position to benefit sooner rather than later. Also enabling communities where there's appetite to help themselves, so whether that's through vouchers or other means that are available. New builds is a big issue. I know that your district has been very positive in terms of things like through its planning policy. Electric charging points is one thing that springs to mind. Ensuring that new developments are connected by full fibre, have really good digital connectivity is really, really important. So we comment on plan applications, but you make the decisions. So more you can do through that is great. It should be a no-brainer for developers to have fast digital connectivity, but often they don't, particularly the smaller developments, and that can cause a big issue because often in those new developments the roads aren't adopted, therefore the supplier can't get in and use their telecommunications powers. They rely on the developer, and it just makes things much more complicated to deliver. Coming towards the end, we work with the National Barrier Busting team to deal with issue, for example, Network Rail, which I didn't mention, but crossing railways, crossing Highways England roads, crossing canals, how we can work with government departments to try and remove some of those barriers and avoid a kind of an ad hoc fragmented approach. So we do work very closely with the barrier busting team to do that. And finally, from me, stimulating take-up is really important. So we've got really high levels of take-up in Northamptonshire because we've helped to raise awareness of it, and there's obviously a really strong demand for it, for faster digital connectivity, especially over the last 6 months or so. Not surprisingly, orders have increased, and it's great that we've been in a position to kind of that it hasn't generally, digital connectivity hasn't been a barrier to people being able to work more from home. And that's really essential. And also, how can we kind of also build our digital sector in the county? So encouraging businesses to invest in digital connectivity, work with local suppliers. So whether it's kind of whether it's about developing your website, or whether it's about introducing other types of digital technology into your businesses, how we can promote a local supplier network. That's through an initiative called Digital Northampton, which again, if you go online, Google Digital Northampton, it's a really good network of mainly business-led, working with the University of Northampton. The County Council works with it, but is very much a kind of facilitator. It is very much business and university-led, but that's about enabling businesses to kind of share knowledge, work together. So that kind of work is just what we should be doing. And finally, how you can find out more. So that where and when map I mentioned, that's the premise map. Rollout schedule is where you find out where your community features. There's a more dedicated project page on the GigaClear website of their plans for Northamptonshire. Those are the lozenges on the right hand side, so you can see all the ones across South Northamptonshire in orange. Any questions, issues, or anything like that, just email bigidea@northamptonshire.gov.uk. Many of you have probably done that already, or follow us on Twitter at sfastnorthants. And the final slide is Q&A. And just in case you needed to understand what the difference is between those 1 gigabit, 20 megabytes per second, which is broadly super fast, and poor, which is 5, that's what it means in terms of downloading a movie or TV show or a video. I'll leave it there. Apologies if it's a bit of a rattle through. I was trying to kind of keep it broad for you, so you had a focus on South Northamptonshire, but also the wider kind of context, but also what the plans are moving forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Ian. That was quite fascinating. I've got lots of hands going up. It's great to see that we've actually been progressing over the years. I think that's very exciting for us. I was a bit disappointed. I live in Paulsbury and I didn't feature on your list, and we've been done.
So you've been done?
Yes.
By GigaClear?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did have a note that it wasn't comprehensive, so
right. I just thought you'd like to add to it, because
we'll add you to the list, Sandra. Thank you.
Yes, I've got a nice little thing at the end of my garden. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Right,
Brilliant.
Who's first then? I've got Ken and I've got Elaine, and then we'd start with you, Ken.
Thank you, Ian. Could I just say that when you talk about the full coverage by 2023 with fibre, does that mean to say that every single house in South Northants will be covered by 2023 with fibre?
No, what the target is by the end of 2023 is 40% of premises across the county. So that's urban and rural. So we haven't set a district target for full fibre or gigabit connectivity.
And second question, very quickly, is that when you've got remote locations, you know, I'm actually not, should we say, I'm not incredibly remote, but reasonably remote, and I'm getting 5 megabits at the moment. When do you hope to get fibre to locations like mine and other ones that are not near major conurbations?
Well, it may well be that we're looking at your plans through GigaClear. So, sorry, looking at where you are through GigaClear, or it could be the outside in program. So, what I suggest is if you email Big Idea, and then we'll with your details, and we'll reply. Is that okay?
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you,
Elaine.
Yes, thank you, Chair. When will we have Silverstone in full operation? Brackley loses most of its internet connection. Can you explain why and what you're going to do about it, please?
So often, if it's about connections, it's those are ones you should direct those questions to your ISP. So your provider, whether it's Talk, BT, Sky. It could, if you again, sorry to kind of not be able to answer it directly, but if you send me your details, we can check. It could be related to what the diagram I showed earlier, the fibre to the cabinet. So for example, Silverstone and Brackley, parts of those two towns were covered by fibre to the cabinet. So it may be about the distances from the premises from the cabinet. It could be that when lots of people go online, the speed that you receive diminishes. So it could be those kind of factors. I think why we're going for full fibre is that removes that contention. So contention is the issue when there's lots of demand and the kind of capacity gets constrained. So full fibre avoids that issue. But again, if you send me your details, we'll look into it with the ISP.
Yes, if you would please, because I live opposite the Buckingham Road Industrial Estate, and when they're in full operation, you've got Silverstone in operation. The estate I live on, which is built in the 80s, because we're on copper, we lose the lot, or more or less. We lose connectivity quite a lot. So that is the problem that we have here. So when are you going to put the fibre into this side of the estate? Any idea?
Well, to be honest, it depends. We have to go through a state aid scheme. So as I mentioned at the start, to prove that we're not investing in an area where it is or there is already superfast broadband. So we'd have to check if your area receives superfast broadband according to Openreach, whoever supplies you. I'd imagine it is Openreach in that part of Brackley. With the outside in programme, and obviously we'll be out of Europe, there'll be a new state aid scheme. So there'll be new areas of intervention. So the rules of the game and where you invest will change significantly over the next kind of 12 to 18 months, depending on how quickly those negotiations over a new state aid scheme and with Brussels, etc., get resolved. So it will be a moving feast in terms of which areas are able to benefit from the £5 billion programme. Apologies, I can't give you a direct answer to that, but if you send me your details, I'll make sure you get a reply with a bit more.
Thank you very much.
Can I have some more hands, please? Richard? And then...
Yeah, thank you very much. You mentioned the recent DEFRA funding. That is good, but the prospect of more public money being doled out must be very limited with the state of the economy bound to get worse, not just because of COVID, but also because of the exit from the European Union. So let's be realistic. As far as these white bits on your map, they won't get superfast broadband till at least 2030, maybe 2035. Isn't that the case?
I'd hope it's going to be better than that. If you see the progress, the maps that showed the progress that we can make over 10 years. There will be parts of the country where it does take 10 years. We don't want that to be this part of the country.
Well, everybody will say that, won't they?
Yeah, they will do, exactly. But
Yes.
my job has been to make sure that we get it sooner than others, and the team I work with. So that's why, we work with government as part, in terms, very very closely as a kind of a trial area, to make sure we're at the front of the queue. It is a competitive process. There's no guarantees, but we're working hard to make sure that does happen. That's all I can say. The white areas are obviously the kind of key areas of focus. They're also obviously the most difficult and costly to serve. So at the end of the day, somebody needs to be subsidised to invest in that, invest in that area. So the economics are challenging. I think in terms of what you were saying about the £5 billion programme, well, who knows? But I think one thing that COVID has taught us is digital connectivity is vital to the economy, and the ability for the economy to kind of continue to a degree is dependent on that.
Thank you.
Charles? Yes, Charles.
Do you want me to chair? Do you want me to speak?
Yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, and thank you very much. That was very interesting. What's the role of Toe Valley? Because I live in a Toe Valley area with Abthorpe, Blakesley, and you haven't mentioned these other community interest companies such as Toe Valley operating, who are providing.
Toe Valley is a brilliant example and unique, I think, in terms of the country, of a kind of community-led project. So when we first started this initiative about eight years or so ago, we were keen to enable Toe Valley to deliver their plans and not be overbuilt, and that's what we helped do. We also work with Eric and his colleagues to help them access European funding to help them build out their plans. So part of our engagement with the market to ensure that we don't overbuild, so don't spend public funding where it's going to be invested, where there are private plans, is working with people like Toe Valley to enable them to deliver their plans and not undermine it with public funding. So yes, they do have a place.
Good, thank you very much. My internet's so unstable, it's just a very topical conversation. Thank you.
Anybody else, please? Yes, David, and then Elise.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be parochial and mention Upper Hayford and parts of Nether Hayford. I did receive a note from Sarah, which Andrew Hunkin kindly sent on to me, saying that Upper Hayford and Nether Hayford now will feature in the extension programme, which is Progress. I keep looking at all these maps and the when and where map and all the other sites, and it doesn't feature. So I'm wondering, I mean, I'm checking it almost daily now. I'm just wondering, is this time expired? I mean, is it now, if it's going to be there, can you give me a better idea of when it will feature, when it will actually be in a list somewhere? And that's a start. And when it is, what date will it likely actually get something done? I suspect Upper Hayford is going to be one of those areas. It certainly won't be commercial, so it'll need fairly significant subsidy, because sadly the county council didn't think to put it in when the Daventry Expressway went in, and so it'll be quite costly. So I'm wondering, A, when it is on a list, how long will it take? And B, what will be the final cost to residents? If it's subsidised, how much subsidy will it get? And will it still be a reasonably priced for residents to use?
Well, definitely it is, and I know your name from inquiries. So Upper Hayford most definitely is. Obviously, they have to get to Upper Hayford, and that involves building out a network. So that it does take some time. I can come back to you in terms of a kind of a more detailed timescale in terms of kind of a quarter for that, but I can assure you it is in the plans. And to get there, what it will mean is they deliver commercial coverage getting to Upper Hayford, because it's pointless for a supplier just to deliver dispersed networks. They might as well join them up, and that means more commercial investment and more choice for people like, well, who benefit through other kind of contracts. So it will definitely happen. In terms of prices, well, it is a really competitive market. So if you just go online, you go to kind of Uswitch or something like that, comparison websites, prices are coming down all the time in terms of the price of almost gigabit speeds are cheaper than what you'd be paying for a basic super fast service probably 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, I think it's a very competitive market. What people like GigaClear obviously want to do is to get more large internet service providers onto their platform. So the Skies, the TalkTalks, people like that. At the moment they haven't got those, but it doesn't impact in terms of the services they can offer to you.
Yeah,
thank you.
So I'll just keep looking.
Let me come back to you separately, David, on that.
Okay. Yes.
With
Thank
some
you.
confirmation.
Thank you.
Councillor Samiotis.
Hello. Yes. I heard correctly, didn't I, that you say Brackley is fully covered now?
It should be. Well, yes, it should be, unless you can. But if there's a specific premise, there could be, to be honest, because it might well be, as I mentioned about new developments. What we find is new developments in towns like Rushden, Northampton, across the county, small developments where the house builder hasn't bothered putting in a good digital service. So there are small isolated pockets.
So does that cover Brackley Town Centre then? Is that completely covered with 4G as well? Whatever you call it.
Well, no, super fast. If you look at that where and when map, the one with all the dots on,
yeah.
If you zoom into that, looking at Brackley, you'll be able to see Brackley Town Centre if there are any gaps. But if there are any premises, aren't any areas where you believe there isn't, they're not receiving super fast speeds, please let us know.
Well,
we'll do our own analysis anyway. 4G is a little bit different because 4G is about mobile connectivity.
I was querying it because Toaster Town Centre doesn't have any super fast broadband. If I go to the Toaster Town Hall, for instance, they're way behind the times. So that, really struggling with their broadband there. So what can be done about that? Because they can kind of get broadband from, say, the restaurant across the road, but obviously they don't want to be using somebody else's. It's like it's on one side of the street, but not the other.
Is that Wi-Fi? I'm not. Do you mean about the Wi-Fi?
So, for instance, I was doing a pantomime last year as like a charity thing, and they wanted to stream it to the hospital in Northampton, but because their 4G network was non-existent, we couldn't do it. So, I mean, I don't know much about all of this. It's all a bit technological for me, but help me to understand how that we can make the broadband better in Toaster Town Centre so that actually can happen.
So if there's areas where there isn't super fast broadband speeds, which is an area of market failure, we're able to invest public funding there.
Okay.
So that's the test. We need to prove, we need to have the evidence there isn't served and the market is not planning to serve that. So we go through that process. If there are premises available, then in areas of market failure, we will then go out to GigaClear. Well, there's GigaClear at the moment because they're our live contracts, and we will ask them to come back to us with a solution, to model a solution. So we will give them a list of premises, and we'll say we've got this amount of money. What solution can you develop for us? And then we'll go through a value for money exercise and scrutinize that. So I would have to kind of check in terms of kind of Toaster Town Centre, what the coverage is like in terms of premises. I'm aware there are some gaps in Towcester. I think the problem is that, or the challenge is that places like Towcester or any other town has been built up over time, and you'll have a whole series of different networks which have been kind of built on incrementally, and the Openreach contracts have been about upgrading an existing network, and inevitably you're going to have some. It's not going to be uniform. There's going to be some gaps. What we were keen when we worked with when GigaClear won the contracts were that we didn't create a kind of a potential kind of patchwork, and so we GigaClear, it was around delivering whole community solutions, and that's been our focus. We're definitely over the last 3 to 4 years delivering whole community solutions. There are challenges, say, in all of the urban areas in terms of these gaps, which we'll need to address moving forward. So
can I leave that in your capable hands then? Would you be able to look into that for us?
You can, yeah. If it helps, if you again email Big Idea with the particular premises that you say town hall. If you've got more details, let us know. We'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else at all now? I can't see anybody indicating. Well, thank you very much, Ian, and please thank your team for what they're doing for us. I certainly think it's an improvement on what we haven't enjoyed hitherto, and I look forward to being connected up. Perhaps it might improve my internet connection here, which is dodgy, as you all know. So thank you, Ian, and thanks. I'm sure you'd like to leave us now, so thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Can we move on then to climate change, colleagues, please? Item 8, and Trevor or Felicity or whoever. I don't know who's with us. Are you there, Felicity? Leslie, can you help me?
Yeah, it doesn't look like they've. I haven't entered them into the meeting. I don't think that that either of them have arrived. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. If you perhaps like to move on to the next item, and I'll see if I can get hold of somebody from there.
That would be good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know Jacqueline's here lurking. Well, she was. Joe, you're going to start.
Hi, I am here. So I just couldn't find my unmute button. I apologize for that. So yeah, I'm here.
Pleased to see you. Joe, do you want to say anything in introduction or just leave it to Jacqueline?
You're in Jacqueline's capable hands, Chair. I'll answer any questions.
Come along then, capable hands. Have you got a presentation?
I will try, yes. I believe the presentation, Natasha, are you doing the presentation for this one as well? That's lovely, thank you.
Can everyone see the presentation?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Jacqueline, if you just let me know when you want me to move slides, then I'll do that for you.
I will do, thank you. Okay, so thank you for letting me come to the meeting today. So I thought I would just do a very quick, it will be a quick 10-minute update in terms of our housing strategy. Next page, Natasha. And so just for background, the strategy was adopted last July. And within that, as with many of our strategies, we have an action plan. And part of that is obviously to continue to monitor those actions and to ensure timely delivery. So I thought it would be useful to just share with Scrutiny Committee how we've progressed with the housing strategy and some of the key pieces of the work that we're going to be doing going forward. Next slide, Natasha. So just to recap, there are 3 key priorities in the housing strategy. The first being building the homes that people need and can afford to live in. Second is enabling people to live settled lives. And the third is developing strong partnerships to provide housing services that meet residents' needs. Next slide. So I just thought I would, under those 3 different priority areas, I just thought I'd give you an update on progress to date. Just the key things, obviously there's been more than this, but just some key progress updates for what the team and the team have been delivering. So for priority one, so first of all, and I know some of you were here earlier this year, we did a training session to members on what affordable housing is. So we did that back in, I think it was January and February, seems such a long time ago. And then we did a very similar session to our development management colleagues, because I know there had been a number of new planning officers within the team. So again, affordable housing is always changing in terms of its definition and what sort of supply we offer and what was delivered on sites. And then the team also did a virtual meeting and training session with our parish councillors via the parish forum, which was held back in July. So I think, you know, it's just good to keep going back and just to continue providing some training sessions and update sessions as things move on and changes are made, especially when you get new plan documents and plan and policies, etc. Another piece of work that the team have completed recently is they have drafted an affordability report. So this examines the affordability of the affordable tenures that are being delivered across the district, and in particular looking at affordable rent. We've had a number of conversations with our RP partners that generally affordable rent for some people on our housing register and people who have moved into affordable rent properties are finding it quite difficult to afford those rents. So we've done a piece of work to have a look at that and to see what kind of incomes are needed to achieve an affordable rent. So in effect, just for general basis, for a 2-bed property in South Northants, you would need about £19,000 to afford an affordable rent property income, but about £14,000 for social rent. So there's quite a difference in terms of income required to be able to achieve those kind of those type of properties. So we're now working with our RPs as to what we can do to try and deliver more social rent properties, because obviously we know they are cheaper. And the team have been successful in a number of cases in terms of procuring and negotiating some social rent on new developments. So it's small steps, but we're trying to work with our RPs to see what other delivery options we can look at to try and achieve more social rent on those schemes. And we've recently met with Homes England, and there's been a new funding regime come out in terms of affordable housing. And so we're having that dialogue with Homes England to see if we can try and secure additional funding, and hopefully that may provide some more affordable rent, social rent going forward. The team over the course of last year, we delivered 127 new affordable homes, and for this year the trajectory is slightly low, unfortunately. It's around about 98. Again, I think as I think I've raised before at meetings, here at South Northants, we have been very reliant on Section 106 delivery. And so that's where most of our new affordable housing delivery takes place, apart from if we are able to secure it and deliver rural exception sites. So, you know, that trajectory could change, but again, that's what we're looking at this current time. As the team had highlighted back in early this year when we did the training session, viability assessments have been, they have completed quite a few, but I've been reliably informed over the last few months, and it could just be because of the pandemic and development may be starting to slow down slightly, but the number of viability assessments have reduced quite considerably, so they don't have very many at the moment. But a development that we have been able to negotiate on was Fieldview and Brackley, where the developer was saying that they only could afford or could achieve 12% affordable housing, but we were able to negotiate and increase it to 26% affordable housing, which is really, really good news. And then recently the team have negotiated a commuted sum in lieu of provision of a retirement living premises in Toaster. And so that once that once that development is completed, we will get around about 80k in a commuted sum in lieu of provision on site. Next slide, please. So in terms of priority 2, we have this private sector housing team last year delivered 30 disabled facilities grants, which is really across the district. And then recently, back in the summer, we had an internal audit of the DFG service, and the outcome was really positive in that they received a significant significant assurance rating. And the auditor highlighted the service had sound procedures in place with administering those grants. So it's a really positive outcome. The team worked really hard, and it has been difficult times during COVID with obviously those people who are vulnerable and shielding have not come forward for, we haven't been able to progress some DFGs, and only recently has that really been picked up because we now can go out and visit the, occupational therapists can go out and visit and assess the need, etc. So they have worked hard, and I think that's been a really good result for them. The other part of the team that they've also been doing a bit of training, and they've one team member has been training to be a trusted assessor. So she's now achieved the top level, which is called a level 4. So that once you get that kind of training, that she can then go out and do assess the need for minor adaptations and equipment for low-level, non-complex cases, and only in the cases where they feel that the case may be more complex, that they can forward to the occupational therapist to do a full assessment. So that will help. So in fact, the team could start looking at assessing adaptations themselves rather than having to refer all cases to the community OT service, which is really good news. And the other member of the team is also looking to progress level 3. So we're going to, some really highly trained and qualified people within the team. As you may know, we support Care and Repair Northamptonshire to run our Home Safe scheme. So this provides like home safety checks and minor adaptations for vulnerable people living in South Northants. And over the course of the year, they've been able to assist 43 households. And we are now looking to we fund Care and Repair Northamptonshire. So we are now looking to funding for the future for the next year. I talked about the Parish Forum, and again, I'm not going to go in detail about the implementation of the Homeless Reduction Act, because I think I mentioned that back in July when I did the homelessness strategy. But again, the team have implemented the Homeless Reduction Act, etc. Next slide, please, Natasha. So really linking into the work that the private sector housing team have completed in terms of DFGs, we have just started a new pilot with Northamptonshire County Council Adult Social Care Community OT Service to embed an occupational therapist within the housing team, and predominantly working with the private sector team. So the OT is going to obviously provide additional capacity to the team, and so hopefully we'll look to reduce some of the waiting times that customers have to wait for an OT assessment. Sometimes this has gone on. People have had to wait up to 16 weeks for an OT assessment when it's been referred to the community OT. So we're trying to, first of all, reduce waiting times and obviously give a better service to customers. But secondly, because now our team members are assessed to trusted assessor level, we're going to use the community OT to provide them with that further support and to develop their skills in this area. So it puts our team members in really good standing for Unitary and any opportunities that might arise going forward as well, but it's also really good for the customer, so they can identify needs, whether it's complex, non-complex, at a very early stage of their engagement. In addition, the community OT not only will work with the private sector team, but will also be working with our housing allocations team. As you may know, when somebody puts an application in, they can also apply on medical grounds, and so we're going to have obviously a qualified occupational therapist to help support and assess new medical assessments that come to the local authority as well. So it's a 6-month pilot, so it will go up to vesting day. So we'll do a review sort of in month 5 to see how it's progressed and see whether we have been able to reduce waiting times and the kind of support in trying to the support that they've given to the team. So I will feed that back early next year. Early this year, we did an allocations health check, so just looking at our allocations policy and our procedures to make sure it's still fit for purpose. So there were very, very few minor amendments that took place in terms of the policy, the working procedures. So that was signed off back in February. And I thought I'd raise with you, because I know I mentioned back in June, July, that obviously we have a hospital outreach worker who works at Northampton General Hospital and Berrywood. And when I spoke earlier this year, we were still trying to organise funding to continue that role going forward. Fortunately, the General Hospital and Berrywood agreed to fund it 50-50. So that role has now been extended for a further year. So Helen Povey began the second year back in September. So that's really good news. Next slide, please, Natasha. Okay, so going forward, and this really links to the affordability report that I mentioned earlier, we are working with our RP partners. We have some commuter sums for where we've got commuter sums in lieu of development for affordable housing. So we've got a small pot of money of commuter sums. And so we're working with our RP partners to identify potential schemes where we potentially could maybe meet local housing need, and that could be maybe changing affordable rent to social rent. So that's a piece of work that the team are completing at the moment. As you know, that the new Part 2 local plan was adopted early this summer. Now we're working with our plan and policy colleagues and development management to produce a new supplementary plan and document for housing. So that obviously will complement the Part 2 plan and will give the clarity and detail for developers and people who are looking to put plan applications in. Again, I will once we've progressed the 6-month pilot, I will come back and review that with you and just give you some outcomes of that pilot with Northampton County Council Adult Social Care. Is there another bullet point, Natasha? We're working with the team in terms of our allocation ICT system. We've got an old system, a Capita Academy, and it does become unsupported come March next year. So we are working in terms of looking at ICT systems. And then obviously a big piece of work, which I obviously can't fail to mention in this arena, is obviously there's a lot of work in terms of Future Northants. Again, looking at approach and aligned, harmonised approach for a new allocations policy with the new unitary authority. We're looking at our customer journeys, particularly at the moment, particularly in terms of homelessness and housing advice. So from day one, regardless of where a customer approaches, they get a very similar level of service across the authority. And we're also looking at producing an evidence base for a new homeless review, because we, as a new local authority, we will need to have a new homeless review and homelessness strategy for the first few years. So I think that's all for me. Any questions?
Thank you, Jacqueline. I thought that was most interesting. I have two questions before I throw it open. You may recall that when we talked about the person working at Northampton General, I did ask you what we were doing about Horton Hospital, bearing in mind that a third of our district actually relates to Horton Hospital rather than Northampton General. Have we made any progress, or are we?
The Horton Hospital is funded because it's the Oxfordshire CCG and not Northamptonshire CCG, so it'd be completely under separate funding regime.
Yes, but we ought to have an arrangement, because we do have an arrangement between Northampton Clinical Commissioning Group and the Horton Hospital, who allow patients from Northamptonshire to be looked after. I mean, I can see Fiona sitting here and other people who have, and Elaine, who've recently been to Horton Hospital. So I don't understand, because are we then not taking any notice of people who go to Horton who may need a service like this? Or what do we do? Or do we send whoever's working at Northampton General out to see them? I mean, it just seems discriminatory to me when we have the two hospitals.
Okay, what I can do, I can speak to Oxfordshire and Cherwell District Council to see if they are doing anything similar in terms of hospitals across Oxfordshire, Cherwell, and come back to you. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. I mean, I just think we ought to know, because it doesn't seem quite right to me. But then perhaps I've got it wrong. The second question, please, is I'm delighted to see we've got trusted advisors. Who does the validation? Where do they do their training?
Oh, I can't remember what it's called. Let me check if I
mean, I think it's an excellent scheme. I'm just interested who actually, I mean, is it online?
No, it's let me just have a look, see if I can.
Does occupational therapy sort of oversee it or something?
I'll come back to you because Helen Caves, the team leader, will definitely know who it is. But it's a nationwide organisation that do these trusted assessed courses.
I think future recruitment, it might be something that people would be interested in. If didn't realise they had to go through the whole OT scheme, but this might open it up to people when lots of people are going to be looking for jobs in the future, and when we morph into our new wonderful unitary, it might just be something that would attract people. But that's all. Anybody else got any questions? Yes, Fiona.
Obviously, as you would imagine, Sandra, like you, I was going to talk about the Horton, and just in case Jacqueline isn't aware, that anybody from Brackley down to the border would automatically go to the Horton Hospital and not Northampton General. So just to put the emphasis on how important it is that Sandra's question is looked into.
Yeah, I will do.
I just wanted to ask you, the OTs that you mentioned that were working through adult social care on our behalf, do you actually have that person yet, or are we still?
Yes, Louise, her name's Louise Lucas, and she started with us on the 23rd of September. So she's in the office, or not in the office, but she does come into the office a little bit, but virtually 2 days a week. So I think it's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So she's working, doing assessments with, doing OT assessments, and obviously doing joint visits with the team where they can as well. So yes.
Okay, so they're actually working.
They are indeed.
A wish.
No, it's all in place. Yes.
Anybody else want to ask any questions? Can't see anybody indicating. Well, thank you, Jacqueline. It's good, isn't it? Aren't you pleased?
Absolutely. Yes, really good. Yeah. Yes.
It's nice to actually see progress being made, which is of benefit to the residents of this district. Last question, perhaps not fair to ask you, but perhaps to Jo, as she's been doing some work. Do our colleagues in other places do similar things? And so, I mean, I wouldn't like to think we're going to miss out for our residents. And going back to the Horton, I think it's even more important that once we go to unitary, things like this will be continued, having somebody working in the hospital.
Absolutely, and of this hospital resource in terms of the Northampton General, it is across the 3 local authorities. So it's not just for S&C anyway. So it is a joint resource that's covering the 3 local authorities. So obviously that will continue. And in terms of other work areas that obviously I've highlighted today, and especially that pilot with NCC, Adult Social Care, Daventry are also running a pilot, slightly different priorities and maybe some of the outcomes that they want from that, but they are also working with the Community OT Service at Northampton doing a pilot to try and embed an OT within their team as well. So we're doing similar things.
It's so important to support adult social care, and this might be, you know, helpful so that we don't have some people can go home and access what they need. And I think, you know, just for the future, when resources are going to be scarce, it is vitally important that the service is offered to a third of our residents. Anyway, I won't flog it anymore, but I'm sure you'll.
That's okay. No, I will pick it up with and feedback to you. Okay.
So thank you, Jacqueline, for that.
Thank you.
Leslie, is climate change off the menu or is it on?
No, it's on the menu, Sandra. We have, sorry, Chairman, we have Felicity in the meeting now. So excellent. If you'd like to move to that item.
Yes, please. Felicity, can we see you? Or not?
She was in the meeting.
Hello, Felicity. Are you receiving us? Mothership to Earth, are you there?
Oh, I think she left. She's just come back. Hello, Felicity. Are you with us now?
It's the delights of broadband in Northampton, I think. Right. Well,
Felicity Parker, are you in the meeting with us now? Hello, Felicity. Can we take your item now on climate change, please?
Well, I've got something that says Felicity here.
Yes.
She's muted.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry, my computer just disconnected. I've had to reconnect via another laptop.
Yes, we can hear you now, Felicity. Thank you. If you'd like, we'd like to. Oh,
yeah.
Yep. If you'd like to continue with your item, lovely. Thank you.
Firstly, very sorry that I wasn't here, but I'm here now. Obviously, I won't go into too much detail because I'm sure you've all already read the report. So I was asked to basically produce a report giving progress on the climate change action plan, which we went to full council at the beginning of the year. Obviously, some things have changed since then, so it was a good opportunity for us to go back through all of our targets and sort of reassess what we could still achieve, what we maybe needed to adapt, and so that's what I've done. I've gone through each section, each action point, identified the key challenges we're currently facing, and then amended a few of the targets and a few of the actions to sort of take account of the challenges we've faced. Like I said, apologies, I don't have anything more prepared, but if anyone has any questions or would like any clarifications on the report, please feel free to ask them.
Thank you, Felicity. Sorry you weren't invited to the meeting, but you're here now, which is good. Just to help me, do you think we could just have one or two trees put up somewhere before we depart?
I would absolutely love to have some trees put up. We are still working on an arrangement with the Woodland Trust. Hopefully I should have details of that confirmed by the beginning of next week, so I can give you some more information on that.
I just find it incredible that an organisation that's dedicated to trees and forests and things actually were on furlough, so they couldn't actually do anything. I mean, surely with enough fresh air around them, they could have actually done something.
Yes. Well, the colleagues we've spoken to since they've been back have been very helpful, but obviously they were on furlough for quite a while, so we can't really blame them. I'm sure it wasn't their decision. So yes, but we should have deals shortly.
I think it's very unfortunate that we had an ambitious plan that this wretched virus have intervened, which stopped a lot of things happening. But we have done the audit, haven't we not, of some of our buildings, which I think is good, and we are ahead of the curve compared with some of our other organisations within Unitary on this one.
Well, yeah, in terms of our own operations, like you said, we have had the review. I've had a meeting with Tim Pack last week, who's taken over the project management of trying to get those actions put in before vesting day as well. Some funding has recently become available, so we're looking into bidding for that for some of the larger items as well. So hopefully we'll see some actually more prompt progress on that in the next sort of few months as well.
Yeah.
I did also have a meeting with my colleagues at Daventry and Northampton Borough Council earlier about the same thing. Hopefully we can maybe do some work together on that too.
Excellent, good, thank you. And again, our communications, as we need to have another look, as you've said, so that we can get some more stuff out to the public and parish councils and things before we depart.
Yep. We have obviously been running the climate change challenge and articles in the SNC review, but we had hoped to be more ambitious doing events and actually meeting with people and things like that. But obviously we've not had that, but we can definitely look at the lessons and build on what we've done this year and hopefully take that forward in the future as well.
Thank you. Anybody want to ask Felicity anything? Please do. Yes. Richard.
Yeah. Well, you've touched on Daventry and the borough, but it is important that the recommendations go forward to the new authority. A lot of work's gone into this, and I applaud what's been done. But there is a horrible feeling one has this could be put on the top shelf and gather dust, and nothing happening. After we change to a unitary. Can you offer any reassurance on that, and as to the conversations you've had with your counterparts in the other authorities?
Well, excellent timing on that one, because literally I came off a meeting about 2 hours ago, like I said, with my colleagues at Daventry and the borough. So Peter Bagley, who is at Northampton Borough Council, had been tasked with producing a decarbonisation plan just for the borough. Obviously, we decided that was a fantastic opportunity for the three of us to get together and actually try and produce one for the whole of the district to have in place by the beginning of the new year. So we're very hopeful. Obviously, we've just had that meeting, but we've already exchanged some documents and started thinking about an approach on that. So yeah, we'd really like to have that in place before the unitary goes live, so that can be adopted and then carried forward.
Can I ask one other? That sounds promising. I believe you've had conversations with people associated with the South Northants Action on Climate group who've sought support from DEFRA. You were going to submit a bid for their project today, I think. Perhaps you can confirm whether it's happened, because they are talking about air quality management or monitoring, which would add to the work that we do already, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's slightly outside of my remit. Air quality, there is a couple of officers deal directly with that, but I was copied into some of the reports, and from what I saw, it looked like it was going ahead. So
yeah, I understand.
That sounds like a great plan. Yeah,
but I think it's an important element of dealing with climate change, the air quality, particularly with the problems we have in Toaster that have been much brought to the fore over the years. Thank you.
Just to cheer you up, Richard, there is a councillor at Northampton Borough Council, Zoe Smith, I think her surname is, who's very passionate about climate change and wishes to have climate change written into absolutely everything that we're going to be doing in the unitary for the future. So I don't think it's going to be lost. Well, unless there's nothing else that people want to look at or ask, can I refer you please to the recommendations, and we are asked to note the progress made and the challenges identified and endorse the proposed next steps. Are you happy to do that?
Yes, I'm happy.
Yes, I can see some nods going on, which is always very encouraging. Thank you very much. Thank you, Felicity. Sorry about the mess up, but
no.
To see you. Thank you.
Yeah, apologies for the confusion.
That's all right. Item 10 then, please. Conclusions of the Section 106 Transport Working Group. Who's going to speak to that? Is that you, Jim?
I believe it is, Chairman. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely.
So yeah, the working group was set up at the beginning of this year alongside the health to investigate how transport funding that's secured through Section 106 is spent, and to specifically to address the suspicion that bus services in particular are being withdrawn and then reinstated using Section 106 money. So in effect, money secured through new development is well, the suspicion was that it was being used to support bus services that were already existing. So the working group was set up and considered in quite some detail 3 specific obligations for some quite varied planning applications. So one being Catchyard Farm at Silverstone, one being Radstone Fields at Brackley, and the other one being Johns Road in Bugbrook. And Chris Ragg of the Northamptonshire County Council engaged with the group. I believe he attended 2 meetings and gave some informative presentations and answered members' questions. And he also provided some information around timelines concerned with those 106s and those bus services, which is appended to the report. That's appendix number 1 to the report. There was an investigation into the consultation that's undertaken when there's any alterations that's made to local bus services, because there's the position is that the Transport Authority doesn't have the powers to insist on bus operators running services in a particular way, or either to prevent services from being changed or even withdrawn. However, the County Council does look to ensure that there is consultation undertaken before changes are made, so that at the very least local people have the chance to have their say, or have the chance to have input into the final outcome of that. The bottom line of the outcome of all of these investigations was that there wasn't strong evidence to suggest that the suspicion that Section 106 money was being used in effect as an extra subsidy for bus services was actually the fact, and ultimately the conclusion of the group was to consider whether a travel plan coordinator should be put in place to monitor Section 106s, and in particular the transport obligations of those 106s. The issue of timing as we transition to the unitary in West Northamptonshire would make that particularly difficult, and I think it's something for the work towards building the new services in the unitary council is something for that to bear in mind and to take into account when deciding how to operate and what structure to run. The final point was that in particular, the working group wished to place on record its thanks to the Northamptonshire County Council's Transport and Development Manager, Chris Ragg, who gave detailed and comprehensive presentations to the working group. So there's no specific action is recommended to be taken by South Northamptonshire Council with respect to the investigations, and so this is the final closing report of that working group.
Thank you, Jim. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got anybody here who's actually on the transport working group who can make any comments about it. But I just wondered whether Fiona or Elaine, as residents of Brackley, wish to make any comments on their buses or lack of them or whatever. Fiona? Councillor Baker?
Sorry. Yes, we have the only success that I know that we've had in consultation, etc., with this system, because Stagecoach, to my mind, are a law unto themselves. And in order to put the new Radston development bus service on, they removed the one that went down Pavilon's Way so that it could do that instead. So it isn't as plain and simple as it sounds. But the only thing that we were able to use some of our 106 contributions for was to provide a bus that would actually access Northampton for students in the morning and in the afternoon who are attending Northampton College. It is a public bus service, but they did, with some of our funding from South Northampton's 106 contributions, they are running a bus service to get people to Northampton and back in the morning and in the afternoon. So that did actually benefit all those young people in Brackley and the villages around who applied to go to Northampton College. So that was the only good thing that I can say that's come out of it so far.
Good, thank you. David Harris, Councillor Harris, do you want to say anything about your bus stops?
I was going to say, we've got 2 lovely bus shelters, but then we discovered we needed to buy some litter bins to go with them. And we've got a decent service, provided you only want to go to Northampton or Daventry. If anybody wanted to come to visit the administrative centre of South Northants at Toaster, they'd either have to walk or hitch a ride.
Yes, mind boggles. Thank you. Elaine, do you want to say anything about North Brackley bus services? Elaine, you're muted. You're still muted.
Right, I'm unmuted now, thank goodness.
Right.
Yes, I was having trouble with the space bar. Yes, I concur with Councillor Baker that the bus services had been altered with regards to Radston Fields. As soon as that was built, they decided to cancel the one in Pavillon Way. The bus services are pretty chaotic in Brackley because the east side of the town is not served at all with buses at all, only the one that goes to Northampton, and they will not Northampton, Milton Keynes, and they won't pick up anybody from the bottom of the road to take them into the town centre. So it's certainly not a good service that we've got here at all. There is one that goes to Bicester, but that is only about once or twice, 2 or 3 times a day, to get people to the railway station, but I don't think it actually stops at the railway station. So I do think that we do need to make sure that the buses are actually running, and also we can't get to Towcester. So be it. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything about the report? Yes, Councillor Dallin.
Thank you. The notion of the travel plan coordinator for our district, I accept that we're running out of time, so it's probably not worth thinking about, but it's a decent one in the sense, and I just hope that some firm suggestion can be put forward to the Unitary Council that it will take this on board, because, you know, we keep moaning about buses, and I understand that because there never seem to be any, and if there are, nobody's on them, and they're never going where you want them to go. But so therefore a coordinator role might be very useful. But we ought to put this as a firm suggestion, having made this report. Otherwise, this report kind of is a waste of time. It doesn't sort of do anything. That's what I'm suggesting anyway.
Thank you. Jim, do you have any comment on that?
Well, I don't see why not. I agree with the suggestion. My previous experience working elsewhere, where there was travel plan coordinator, working closely with the planning team actually, so that then we were clear when Section 106s were agreed by the planners. Then we'd pass them on to the travel plan coordinator to make sure that they are monitoring that it actually happens. So I think I agree with the suggestion, and I will certainly be putting that into the mix in the local government reorganisation process for West Northants.
Thank you. Andrew Hankin, I can't see you, but I'm sure you're there somewhere. Can you just advise me how we would progress that? Because, I mean, you know, it's lovely to have Jim saying he'll do it, but I think we need perhaps to have it on a piece of paper somewhere.
Yes, it would. It can be put down on a piece of paper. It reflects, in essence, what Jacqueline was saying earlier on as well. You know, just getting as much work done prior to the transition, so that we were in the best position to make the case once we're into the unitary.
Yes, so just advise me, please. Can we attach it to the recommendations? But this is not, you know, to say this has come from the scrutiny, because this has only come from the working group.
Yes, that would be a problem.
So we could attach it to this report, could we?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Right, would somebody like to propose that we do that then, please, Richard?
Yeah, I've had my hand up since the beginning of this meeting in respect of
sorry, I can't see. Sorry, Alan, I didn't see you. Apologies. Right, before we do that, let's Councillor Walker speak, please.
Right, I've got a number of things to say in respect to this report, and I have no problem with accepting the report as it stands because it was dealing with 106 agreements. A number of people have said already about the bus services in South Northamptonshire. I've been dealing with Deanshanger for the last 3 years in relation to services coming and services going, so I'm pretty strong at knowing what I'm talking about. And I've been dealing with a guy called John Ellaby at NCC, who is the subordinate to Chris Ragg. The real problem is at the present time is no buses want to do rural services because it doesn't make a profit. Having said that, we have elderly and young that live in South Northants, and it's already been intimated that cannot get backwards and forwards. The real problem is that if we're going to make a difference anywhere, we need, as Andrew has already said, we need as a committee and or as a council to be telling the transport managers at government, whether it be through the MP, because I've already been through the MP because we've just lost a bus service and just got one back, which I've been heavily involved in at Deanshanger. We need to make a pledge that if we're going to talk about public transport, then this area, South Northants, needs to have public transport backwards and forwards, whether it runs at a profit or whether it does not run at a profit. The company we're dealing with at the moment in Deanshanger, which is a great individual company. Stagecoach just pulled out with 72 hours notice. Now that's the law, they're entitled to do that. I managed to get Britannia bus service in there from a local guy who runs a service also in Northampton as well, I might add. Sorry, from Towcester to Northampton. And having said that, because of the coronavirus thing at the moment, obviously there's nothing coming, there's no trade because people aren't getting on buses anymore at the moment. So we had a similar situation where the bus service was stopped, then it was put back on, then it was stopped, etc., etc., etc. I think someone somewhere, we should be determining for this area that we should have a decent public transport system. I don't want to go back to Deanshanger as it was prior to me moving there 30 years ago when they had, well, they didn't have a bus service, to be quite blunt. And if Brackley East has not got a bus service, well, shame on the Transport Minister and shame on everybody else for not having public transport. We're talking about a society where we should be not using cars and we should be using public transport, cycles and or walking. Now, I can't see anybody walking from Brackley to Northampton, and I can't see anybody walking from Deanshanger to Towcester. But what I can say is that if they're going to start throwing money around on coronavirus, then they better start throwing money around on the public transport system. Because again, as I say, we have got you've got Brackley, you've got Towcester, you've got Deanshanger, you've got Grange Park, you've got a number of big conurbation areas in this area that are not being provided properly for. And if the companies aren't making any money, and I understand where they're coming from, I know it costs somewhere in the region of about £50,000 a year to run a 5-day service on a 2-hourly basis, Monday to Friday, let alone Saturday. Okay, then somebody's going to have to pay for it. Now, the taxpayer pays for it in some ways through their bus passes, but I'm led to believe at the moment the government are starting to renege on the bus pass contributions as well. So what we really need is someone to get in there and start finding out the facts of the matter. Coming back to what Richard was saying, as far as a coordinator is concerned, yes, I do believe we need a coordinator. I also believe that we need to tell the unitary that we want a coordinator for each of the areas, because without one, everybody's going to be stuck. I mean, I've taken it on my own head, and I got on very well because I'm a county councillor with John Ellaby, and I can foresee in the future under unitary that this area is going to be starved of public transport. Now, that's fine. I've got a car, but I'm thinking of the elderly and the young. And that's where I'm coming from. And if we don't make a stand now, then it will never happen and we'll be forgotten. And then we'll be sitting here, well, I won't be, but a lot of people will be sitting on the unitary and saying, well, where's our bus services? If we don't make a stand now before we get into the unitary, and I know where it's going to have to go to, it's going to have to go to the shadow board of the unitary. Someone on that shadow board is going to have to be responsible for public transport. And I don't mean as an officer, I mean, and even if it's only a couple of councillors, need to be involved with the workings that are going on with public transport in this area. So, as you can see, I'm pretty miffed off about this, and I've really got the hump about it. But again, as I say, if we're going to go forward and not go backward, this process has already been started. We've had a working group, and I commend them for everything they've done in relation to where they've come from. 106 monies is not the answer at the end of the day, because as I say, in the rural areas, we don't theoretically get that many houses, so therefore a lot of money don't go to the bus services. But equally, we should be funding the bus services as much as we fund the police force and as much as we fund the fire service to that level. But that doesn't seem to nobody wants to do that. But as I say, my suggestion is exactly what we've been talking about. We commend this report, we push it forward. We ask, actually, I would like to ask someone from the unitary group that's going to be set up, who's actually going to be involved in it. I'd like them to come along and explain to us how they're going to actually deal with public transport in this area, or West Northamptonshire, if that's the right way to put it.
Right, thank you, Alan. I think we've got, first of all, can we just go back to the suggestion that we added the transport travel plan person to our recommendations, which Andrew has said that we can
Sorry,
do.
Councillor Barnes, Lisa Samiotis has her hand up.
Right, sorry. Do you want to talk about the recommendation?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say was it's all very well as having a transport coordinator, and I think it's a really good idea. However, that coordinator needs to liaise with us as members, because we know what we need and what our district needs. It's all very well having somebody in charge, but unless they know exactly where we need this public transport, then they're just a waste of space, really. So can we put in the report that they should be consulting with members as well?
Well, Lisa, this is not our report. This is a report from the working group looking at 106. All we're going to do from this committee, as I understand it, is add a recommendation that we think somebody should be employed. Now, if anybody who undertakes the job, and whether we'd get any money to pay for it before we depart, I don't know. But anybody worth their salt in that position obviously has got to talk to all sorts of stakeholders, including councillors. I mean, well, it's obvious, isn't it?
Not always.
Well, come on. So first of all, can we address this first thing, please? Would you like to add a recommendation to the report from the 106 working group?
Yes.
Does anybody like to propose?
Excuse me, Chairman. Could we ask perhaps Andrew Hunkin who we should make the recommendation to? Are we making it to the West Unitary Shadow Council, or are we recommending it to South North Hants Council?
Well, I would have thought it needs to go to the Unitary myself, but Andrew, please.
Well, Chair, obviously you don't have a Unitary until the 1st of April anyway. So, it is whether or not you would like this to be something which the council considers as a whole in the first instance, and see whether or not you could get that supported, and then you would take it on from there. Obviously, listening to Councillor Walker, there are ways in which you could raise this anyway when you feel strongly about this. And I'm talking here about generally individuals as well, through the shadow executive meetings, where you do have motions and questions as well. So there is a way of raising its profile. Obviously, there's the discussions you have within your groups as well. But if I look at it in the cold light of day, it's like with a lot of things, you're trying to get this planted so it is something which is taken seriously by the Unitary, and you need. If you feel strongly about this, then it's something you need to be using every avenue to do so. But obviously, it will be up to the Unitary and the members which it actually has in place then what it takes forward, and that's just the way it's going to be, I'm afraid.
Yes. Right. We go back to the premise. Do you want to add something to this report, or do you wish to raise something to go to be considered by BPM or full council?
Well, I think we should add it to the report, but I think, well, both. I mean, that really, we want it to be considered. If it has to go in stages, and I understand what Andrew is saying, then yes, do it that way. But ultimately, it's those councillors who hope to be on the Unitary might take particular notice of all this. Then they can take it forward if officers are not able to immediately.
Well, yes. Do you agree with that?
Yep.
So can we have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose it.
I'll second it.
Richard. Yeah,
I'll second it.
Second it. Councillor Walker, seconding it. Yes. Martin, were you waving to me, Mr. Henry? No. Right. It was just a gesture, wasn't it? All right. Right. So can we thank, please, then the members of the working group, and we'll add that to it, and then we'll think about discussing this at full council if somebody would like to put it forward. And then also we need to urge our colleagues who are going forward to the Unitary, that is something they should consider. I'm sure there'll be a portfolio holder who will be looking after transport. I mean, it'll be a miracle if that, well, it'd be mad if they don't have somebody who's going to have that portfolio, I would have thought. Is that all right then? Leslie, are you happy with that?
Can we just clarify the recommendation then? So it's to recommend a role of transport plan coordinator, and you're recommending it to council, full council.
Yes, then they can then perhaps put their weight behind it to bring it forward to the unitary. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes, I think I've got nods, Leslie.
Okay.
Right, thank you. Let's move swiftly on. Thank you, Jim. Can we move swiftly on to our work programme, I think? Leslie?
I think Diana's going to do this for us. Thank you, Chairman.
Good.
Right.
Hello, Diana.
The topics in the work programme are included in the agenda. Should there be any amendments, we'll reflect those in the programme next time.
Right.
Is there any comments to what we have included?
Anybody, any comments on the work programme?
Madam Chairman, can I raise a question about when we're going to be seeing the Chief Executive of the Health, the Clinical Commissioning Group? We are willing, as far as I can see, to meet any time, anywhere. But they seem to have difficulty getting in touch with us or saying when they could do it. But it is important, this, because the lack of health provision as we see it on the new development in Towcester is extremely worrying, notwithstanding they're planning to expand the facilities in town. There are many, many people coming to live here, and we need to have health cover for them, whether they be young or old. So can there be an urgency on this? And perhaps you can enlighten us where we've got to.
Richard, it's not without trying. My latest update from Joe, I think at the beginning of the week, was that they hope that they will suggest a date or two in November. And I understand it's the latest one, and we don't want it any later than November, otherwise it will slip off the radar. And we will have a special meeting entirely devoted to primary care services in South Northamptonshire. Is that right, Joe?
Thank you, Chair. That is correct. I chased again today in the hopes that I could provide a more detailed update to the committee, but I will I will chase again this week.
Well, frankly, Joe, as I said in my email to you, to get the PA to arrange a date between two people, one of whom is part-time, the chairman, I just find it incredible. They can't, I mean, having been chairman of Primary Health Services Authority, I know it's not that difficult. And I just don't accept that they just can't give us an answer. How long have we been asking? Several weeks now. It's not your fault. Yeah. It's their fault. And I think, you know, I know people don't like the word public servants these days, but that's what they are. They, you know, they get their money from the government. So come on, just, you know, blame me. Say you've got a very stroppy chairman who's getting the end of her tether. And I'm really getting fed up with it, because we do need to consider this and get some answers from them.
On a more positive note, Chair, I have been invited to the primary care working group around Towcester provision. So Tracy Hill, one of our planning colleagues, is already on that group, but they have invited me so we can start to think about links to our wellbeing team, and I'm trying to facilitate some links with adult social care.
Lovely, Joe, and I'm great that the officers are going to be involved, but the point is we are elected councillors on behalf of the people who live in our district, and at the least we should know what their plans are, because it's all being decided without any input whatsoever from local councillors, and at least, and this council, I may say, really, because we've not discussed it at council with their plans. So, you know, fine, but we still need to be heard, and I would extend the invitation when we get this meeting to every councillor who wishes to come and listen to what they've got to say. I've given you some ideas of what they want to talk about. They ought to know what they need to talk about, and you know, it's all very well saying the GPs at the moment are absolutely wonderful and providing a good service. I frankly don't think that when you have a consultation you have to sit in your car in the car park is quite the answer these days. However, I've stopped my rant now, you'll be pleased to know. I shall simmer down and we look forward to a date in early November. Yes,
absolutely.
Leslie.
Yeah, could I just suggest that perhaps if you're talking about all councillors coming to this meeting, perhaps we could, if anyone's got any specific questions that they've got for the for this person, that we could have them in advance just to let them know what to expect and what, you know, they could be a bit prepared.
In advance, Leslie, I'm not prepared to let them have every question in advance. If they're you know, they are doing a job full time. The chief executive's on a high salary to be able to answer questions about primary healthcare services in South Northamptonshire.
Well, I was just thinking about any members that perhaps couldn't get to or couldn't attend the meeting.
They can send it to us, but I don't think we need to send them on to them because they've been given a big enough steer now. And if they need to be briefed by whoever in their own organisation, that's up to them. But I mean, you know, it's not rocket science what we're trying to ask them.
Chair, as you outlined, you have
here, but I'm getting totally fed up with it all.
There's Chair, as you've highlighted, we have given them a steer. We agreed some bullet points to steer the things that we would like them to cover, so they have had that. So we have provided that, Leslie, for their.
Well, thank you, Jane.
Right, so early November, people, and if it happens, I will. When we do it virtually, I was going to say if we were actually in the council chamber, I'd buy us all a bottle of something to after the event to say that we've actually achieved it. So,
well, we may need it.
Will it be sparkling at least? Anyway, so let's move on. Anybody, anything on the work programme? Yes. Sorry, Ken, you're waving to me.
I don't know whether it's appropriate, Chair, but should we include on the work programme the link road and the lack of progress or progress that's been made on it?
We can do. And there's also the Saracens Head Junction.
Yeah, yeah. Because I passed by, well, not frequently.
I'm looking at Andrew here. He doesn't know I'm looking at him, but I am. Any comment on that being included, Andrew?
It is for members to decide what they wish to have on there, obviously. But, so I have no problems with that.
Okay.
I'll add that to the work programme, Chairman.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the work programme? Can I just make a comment on the topic sheet, please, if that's allowed?
Yep.
And I think this relates to Jim, if he hasn't already left us. He probably has. Oh, no.
I'm still here.
That's good, man. Business strategy. Apparently, you're going to schedule it at an appropriate time. May I ask you, please, when is the appropriate time?
The strategy hasn't been finalised yet. We've been working on a revised strategy to get us back to a normal economy after coronavirus. And we have a draft report from the expert consultants we engaged, which will need to be considered by SMT. I think it's either next week or the week after. Following that, then the report will need to be finalised, and then anyway, we've got a fair bit to do still on that. What I didn't want to do was to come with roughly what came before, really, which members didn't seem to appreciate any too much.
Might we be able to have a go?
I'd say in the new year, yeah.
Yeah, before
March. Put that on as an item to be allocated then, is that okay? Or, yeah.
So before we depart, Jim?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Got something to look forward to then. Good, thank you. Anybody else want to add anything to the work programme? Don't be shy. No?
Chairman, can I jump in quickly?
Yes.
Just a suggestion. Obviously we're transitioning off and moving out to West Northampton time. Would it be worth, or is it such a thing, to create some kind of handover document from one scrutiny committee to the next? There's a list of things that we're interested in, points that we'd really like them to continue with. I don't know if there is such a thing, or it's in.
Well, the
anyway.
Shadow Unitary do have a scrutiny committee, People very active. They're meeting quite a lot. I'm not sure what they're scrutinising as yet, but that's only for the shadow, and there will be a new scrutiny committee. Is it going to be more than one, Andrew, set up to look at various things, or just the one?
That hasn't been decided yet, but that is one of the things which the constitutional working group will be given consideration to, as to the number of scrutiny committees there should be.
Well, Councillor Hopkins, I think it would be very nice of us just to be very polite and very friendly to sort of give a report on what we've done and topics that we wish to be considered, perhaps. If that will suffice. Would that be in order, Andrew?
Oh, that would be fine, yes.
Excellent, right. Well, Leslie, if we can add that in at some time towards the end of our demise, that we will forward something to the...
Well, we usually do an annual report. Perhaps that could be made available for them.
Yes. What would topics we don't want to lose. Right. Okay, then.
Are we going... Oh.
Sorry. Perhaps just being pedantic, it probably would be a good idea if our final report was a sort of a valedictory report, summing up what we've done and with referring to loose ends that we'd like the new authority to pick up.
Indeed.
I think so. The final report could be in a slightly different form as a valedictory report.
Yes. All right, Leslie?
Yes, we can look at that, certainly.
Yeah, we'll liaison with that nearer the time. Yes, Elaine, are you waving to me?
I am. Yes, I am. You know, Northampton are doing this road thing where they're putting cycle lanes and things everywhere.
Yes.
Well, there's a whole group that wanted to have cycle lanes down the A43 to look at. Helmden, Siresham want a cycle lane of some sort to come into Brackley that people can walk, and also a walkway as well. And also for people with invalid, or not invalid carriages, but older folk with their mobility scooters to come down as well. Is there anything that we can do put that on there anywhere, or do anything about it? It's a sort of a transport problem again.
Andrew, I think that's Highways England. I'm not sure I would like to be in a mobility scooter going along the A43, but still.
No, I was thinking on a footpath.
Well, that would be better, Elaine, I think.
Chairman, I think that's ringing a bell with me. They so the county council was coordinating, because there was a pot of money, pot of government money, and the county council was coordinating that. So I think I fed that in to the county council. If the group contacted me, to be honest, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, because I was contacted by a number of groups with their suggestions that I then fed into the county council. So I'll check that out. If we take it offline, councillor, and if you let me know the details, then I can at least find out whether it is in the mix or not.
They wanted to put
I'll do that.
They wanted to put a cycleway and close Billing Road, and it went out to consultation, and the public turned around in no uncertain terms and said no. So there is a group that does this sort of thing for cycling and for strategic walking at the county council.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Right.
Okay, shall we go to note the... We're just asked to note the work programme on the topic sheet. Yep.
Right.
And then, thank you, Chairman.
Are you going to take the next bit?
Are we going to exclude the press and public?
Yes, please.
We just wait for...
if everyone could just agree to that.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Stop the board.